Welcome back to Session 5 of the JA Economics for Success program. Today's activity is called Keeping Score, and the materials that you need are the table tents, the Keeping Score game instructions, as well as the Keeping Score game cards. What you'll notice is that each set of cards is in a different color, so that's going to help you keep the game organized for your students. What you want to do before going into the classroom is to tear apart these cards. So you'd want to take all of the cards of one color and you're going to keep those in the same group. But what you'll notice is that there are scenario cards, that's the majority of the cards, and then there are cards that have the words discard, exchange, and accept required draw. You want to make piles so that all the scenario cards are together, the discard, the exchange, and then the accept required draw cards. That way, when you hand it out to the students, it will be very easy for them to know what pieces go where. This activity is an extension to the previous activity in the conversation of credit and debit cards. This one is going to dive deeper into the importance of credit scores and how they affect our future finances. What you'll notice is that there are some great talking points in the introduction that walk you through a conversation regarding what is a credit score, why is it important, does it even matter, and how does it work. So use those talking points in the beginning of your conversation to get the students to understand a little bit more specifically about what a credit score is. The actual game that they are going to play is called Keeping Score. So each group of students is going to get a stack of cards in which they're going to have the scenario cards, and then each student in the group needs to have one discard, one exchange, and one accept required draw card. So what you want them to do is get into their groups, put the scenario cards in the center of the circle of students, and then they each need to have one of the individual cards in their hand. The extra cards, if they don't have as many team members that need all the cards, can just be put off to the side. What you want to do is, before breaking them into small groups, I would actually go through these instructions to help them understand. It's a little bit confusing, but if they can listen well and if you can role play and model how the game is supposed to be played, it can go really smoothly in the classroom. The first step is that each student is going to draw a scenario card, and that card is going to be what they end up with. So let's just pretend each one of these three cards is a different student. One of the cards says, you open your first checking account, add 20 points. The next student got student loan default. Interest grows as the loan goes unpaid. Subtract 15 points. And the third student picked up the you monitor your credit report regularly. Add 3 points. The first step is for all the students to grab one card and to read it out loud so that everybody can hear it. So now we know one student has a positive 20, one has a negative 15, and the other has a positive 3. What they're supposed to do is the first person who gets to start, I will rotate after every round, gets to decide what they're going to do. So you always have the option to simply accept what you've been given. There is no card for that. That's just the default, that if you don't use one of your other cards, you would just simply receive what you got. But what the students have the opportunity to do is to consider if they want to use one of the other three cards. If they want to discard their card and get a new one, if they want to exchange their card for somebody else's in the group, or the third card is called accept required draw. And that means you want to accept your card, but you want to require somebody else to draw a different card. Sometimes this card can be very confusing and frustrating for the students. If that's the case, simply take it out of the game. Just don't even provide that card and just work with the exchange and the discard. If you think the students can understand that you accept it and you require somebody else to draw something different, then you can use it in gameplay. It's not worth a point of frustration, so if you want to just get rid of it, just don't even bring it into gameplay. But for an example, if I was the student that had 3 points, I could accept that because at least I'm in the positive, but maybe I require the person that had the plus 20 to get to exchange that one for a new card. That would be an example of when you'd want to use the accept required draw card. Or if you really, really wanted to help your friend who had this subtract 15, you could accept yours and require that they draw something else. But most middle school students probably wouldn't be that generous. So what they're going to do is they're going to get to walk through each scenario by reading their cards, deciding what they're going to do, and basically once you've made the decision, then you are no longer part of that round. So somebody else, if you just secured that you wanted to keep your plus 20, somebody beyond you cannot go back and revert that. So that's why with each round, the person who starts changes so that everybody gets a chance to be at the top and the end of the game play. The students are just going to have however many minutes works for your class, depending upon your introductory conversation and how long that took. Please watch the time for your class and allow the students to play for, 10 to 20 minutes, depending on what works for your time period that is allotted. They would then just grab another scenario card and they would do the whole process over. The one thing you want to make sure to note is that they can only use their exchange, discard, and accept required draw card one time. So they want to make sure that they're strategic not to use them necessarily in the first 2 rounds in case they end up really wanting it in the 5th or 6th round. There are some great wrap-up questions just before the summary and review that will allow the students to think a little bit more about the content of what they explored in these cards. Now, obviously, these cards are just representing some ideas of how credit score works. What are some of the things that bring it up? What are some of the things that bring it down? They're clearly not equal to a real credit score. We're using the numbers 5, 10, and credit scores are into the hundreds. And so obviously it's not an apples to apples, but it's getting the students to think about what types of things hinder it, what are types of things that will raise it up. In the summary and review, you can just take a few short minutes to kind of recap some of that key vocabulary and challenge the students to think about how our choices really can have a lasting impact on our future finances. So when they're starting to make those decisions regarding credit, that their choices that they make, the decisions that they make, are going to have potentially a long-term consequence on their credit. Enjoy session 5.